This is how you can go from this to this. Hey guys, I'm Aditya, a 3rd degree black belt, and I've been practicing Tae-Kwon-Do pretty much my entire life. In that time, I've made almost every mistake there is to make. In this video, I'm going to share some of my tips so that hopefully you guys don't make the same mistakes. Whether this is the first time you've heard of Tae-Kwon-Do or if you've been practicing for a while, I'm sure there's something in here that everyone can take away to get their kicks better. So, just for some context, Tae-Kwon-Do is a Korean word which means the way of using hands and feet. In this video, we're going to be focusing on the feet part, which is our kicks. So, whether you're a beginner or have already started, you need to realize that the foundations are the most important part. A lot of us try and jump ahead and we get caught up in just kicking higher and ignore a lot of the details that allow us to get there. So, how do we actually go from this to this? First, we got to understand what we're doing wrong.
Alright, so what's actually wrong with me doing this kick right here? So the first thing that you can see on the bottom right there is my pivot. Right, I know it looks stupid, but just what's wrong with the actual kick. So the first thing that was done wrong was I didn't pivot my bottom foot. Now the second thing is I didn't chamber properly, and we'll get into what all of these mean later. Thirdly, right, you can see I'm probably not very flexible in this picture. I can barely pick my foot up. And then lastly, right, my balance is all over the place, so I can't do a good kick.
So I've been teaching my students in person and online for over 3 years now. And these next few things, time and time again, are the biggest things that hold them back from doing really good kicks. Alright, the first thing I want to touch on is our pivot. Now, our pivot, it allows us to spin and turn. Now, I understand why that's really important when we talk about our chambers in just a second. But how do we do our pivot, right? So our pivot, we obviously do it with our feet. That's how we're going to be spinning. So we're going to turn off the ball of our foot. So the ball of our foot, that's the part right below our toes. Now, what I want everyone to try, right, if you haven't done this already, is when you pivot, right, the best exercise I tell my students when they're first learning is to try and do a whole spin all the way around with the ball of their feet. And what you'll notice, right, if you try doing it on your toes, you're not going to be able to spin very far. The only way it's really going to work is if you're on the ball of your foot. And that's, again, the part right below your toes. So it won't work if you're on your toes. It has to be the part right below it. So this is on my toes, right below. Once you're on the part right below your toes, that's when you'll be able to do a whole spin. Now, you're very rarely going to be doing a whole spin like that. But the point of that is, that exercise is to get you used to the feeling of just spinning around on the ball of your foot. Now, this pivot, as I said earlier, it's going to come in really important when we start kicking and doing those chambers, right? This pivot allows us to turn our hips, move our body. That's where we get our power, keep our balance, all of that. So this is a super important first step for everyone to learn.
And you know we out here every day with it. I'ma show you how to get it. It go right foot up, left foot.
Now the second thing I want to talk about today is our chamber. You can kind of think of the chamber as a foundation for your kick. Right? Without the chamber, there's not going to be a good kick, right? That chamber, it gives us that power and it kind of dictates how high that kick's going to go. Now, here's an example of a chamber. So first, I'm going to do the kick, then I'm going to do the chamber. So here's the kick. It's a snap kick, right? Now here's the chamber for that kick. As you can see, this one looks pretty simple, right? You're just picking that knee straight up. But what does this chamber do? This chamber, it guides the leg how high it's going to go and where it's going to go. For example, if I pick my knee up right here, it's very unlikely that my leg's going to come out here, right? It's going to go over here. If I only pick up my knee this high and I fully lock out my leg, my kick's only going to go that low. So hopefully you're starting to understand why that chamber is super important for a strong and high kick. Now, how do we do a good chamber, right? Right there, as you saw with that snap kick, all you have to do is pick up that knee, right? And for different kicks, it's going to be slightly different. And I will go more in depth with this in a future video. But for right now, what you have to know is that your chambers, if you want a kick to be high, you have to have a high chamber. So for example, right, as super basic, your snap kick, you're going to have your knee at least to your belt. And if you don't have the belt, then up to your hip, right? That's where you want your knee to be. Now, let's say you don't want to do a snap kick. You want to do something like a roundhouse kick. Now this is where what we talked about just a few seconds ago with our pivots, that's where it comes in. Because you can't really turn your leg like that fully sideways if your foot's not turned, right? If you do that, it's not going to be powerful, it's not going to be strong, it's not going to look good, any of that. What we have to do is we have to pivot this foot while we're doing our chamber in order to do a good roundhouse kick. So how do we do that? For example, my roundhouse kick, I would first pick up my knee and pivot at the same time, and then kick it out. So that pivot allows us to bring that power sideways and turn our foot at the same time. So that when we do a kick, when we finally extend that leg, it can actually be sideways. Now there are many more kicks like this. Our side kicks, our hook kicks, so many more, right? But for right now, especially if you're first starting out, what you really need to take away from this is that you need to have a high chamber and a strong chamber in order to have any good kick. So you can choose whatever kick you want, right? I would recommend if you're first starting out, just do a snap kick because that's the easiest one. All you have to do, pick up that knee about this high, and then when you finally kick, what you want to do, you don't want to just fully stop it there. You want to follow through. Again, that chamber is guiding that foot. It doesn't stop there. So once it's here, watch what my leg does. I still bring it up, but that's the foundation of that kick. Hope that helped. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is our balance. Now, I don't need to explain to you guys why that balance is important, right? Especially when you're on one leg. That balance is super important for just keeping us upright. If you don't have good balance, you're just going to fall over, your kick's going to be all out of place, and it's not going to work, right? So that balance, it just allows us to stay straight, and it allows us to keep our balance while we're turning our legs, while we're chambering, while we're pivoting, all of that. So that balance, it kind of just ties everything together. Now, let's say you have terrible balance, right? What are a few ways that you can work on it? Now, just like everything else, you can't just go 0 to 100, right? You have to go every place in between first. So, if you really suck, right? No offense. What I would recommend, right? First, just grab a wall. And let's just stick to that snap kick example, right? Put your hand on a wall, stand sideways towards it, and what you should do is pick that knee up, right? Pick that knee up as high as you can, and just hold it there, right? See if you're falling over. If you're already jumping around, then make it lower. Make it even easier for yourself. But once you can do this, right, start taking your hand off the wall. See how long you can last. If you're falling over, grab the wall again, take your hand off. Then after a while, right, you should be able to just pick that knee up and hold it there. Some little tricks, right? It works differently for different people. Maybe staring at a place on the wall, right? Still place. That helps some people balance. Just keeping a focused mind, that always helps. But that balance, again, it ties everything together, and that's what you're going to need in order to do these kicks. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is our flexibility. Now, if you've been watching and you're like, I can't even pick my knee up to my hip, that's a problem, right? Then this is what's going to fix that, right? Your flexibility. That's what allows you to be able to kick. Now, even if you had a perfect chamber, perfect pivots, and you can't physically pick your foot up above here, then you're not going to have a high kick no matter what. Now, our flexibility, in my opinion, I think is the most straightforward thing to fix because all you need to do is stretch. Now, there's many different kinds of stretches, and there's a lot of good stretches out there. Now, here are some of my favorites that you guys can try. But this is what I do, this is what I teach to my students, and it's helped them get pretty high kicks, right? Maybe they started out from really low kicks, now they're kicking up here, right? Like everything, you got to just keep on making it harder on yourself if you want to get better. Now, the first stretch I like to teach is our butterfly stretch. Now, our butterfly stretch, it's super simple. You have to pull your feet in as close as you can, right? This is where pushing yourself harder every day. That's where that comes in. Maybe the first day you can only go out here, second day maybe a bit more, then eventually after a couple months, you bring your feet in as close as you can to your body. Now, that's just one part. The second part of it is pushing your knees down. Now, the way I like to do this is with my elbows, right? So what happens is you push your elbows down. Now, the next part, you push your knees down with your elbows. Now, the next part is bringing your body forward, and I like to say nose to your toes, right? Super easy to remember. So you bring your feet in as close as you can day by day. Then you push your knees down as low as you can day by day. And you bring your nose to your toes as close as you can day by day. And what that really does, right, that stretches a lot of the muscles that we need in order to get a good high kick. Now, the second stretch I like to do is, again, sitting down. But this one, you can do it with either foot and then both those feet. So you can really play around with it, do which one you feel like. But here's what it is. You tuck one foot in all the way, again, as close as you can, and then put your other foot straight out. The most important part of this is that you do not bend your knee. That's what allows your muscles to be stretched. As soon as you start bending your knee, that tension's gone and it's not going to be as effective. So what are we doing? We're reaching down. Again, every day, right, you want to be getting more and more intense. So let's say you just start out, you can barely reach above your knee. That's fine. But every day, you're going to want to push yourself more and more, right? If you're not pushing yourself, you're not going to grow, and it's not your stretch. It's not going to get better. Your kicks aren't going to get higher, right? That push is what actually makes you better. So what you have to do, right? Reach down day by day. Now, eventually, maybe you'll start getting to your toes, and you might think you're done. You can't push it anymore, but that's wrong, right? You can still push it around your feet. You can do more and more to make it more intense. And obviously, you could do it with either foot in front. You could try it both feet. And then that's where that comes in, right? That both feet, that's what really starts to hurt, and that's what really makes you better, right? So right here, same thing. Maybe you start out over here, but then eventually, again, keeping those knees straight, you want to reach down, reach around. And that stretch, hold it there for like 10, 15 seconds every day, right? Just get better and better. That's what's going to help get your kick up there. Now, this third stretch, I think, is really good, not just for your flexibility, but also for your chambers and your balance. So it's kind of like an all-in-one. So what this is, right, you're going to pick that knee up, and then you're going to grab it, right, hug around it, and pull it in. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see when I tell my students to do this is that they grab the bottom of their foot and pull it in like that. You see how that knee's coming out? That's not what you want. Not only is that not as good of a stretch, but also that's not really a good chamber. Think about our chambers, right? That leg's going to come up. That knee's coming up. If it came forward, look how low that kick is. Look how unstrong, it's not even a word. Look how bad that kick is, right? But when we pick that knee up, that's when our kicks get good. That's a good chamber. So same thing here, right? We're working all of them. You want to pick that knee up, not forward. So grab around it, hug it, and pull it in as close as you can. Now you have one foot up. That's working on your balance. You're stretching that foot by hugging it as close as you can, and you're working on that chamber all in one. Now, hopefully, some of those stretches were helpful. And again, day by day, push yourself more and more, and that's how you're going to get more flexible and get those kicks out there. Now, the fifth thing I want to talk about is our 5 tenets of Tae-Kwon-Do. Right now, if you don't know, it's a universal thing across Taekwondo, right? And it's kind of basically the morals, kind of the main pillars, I guess, of our mentality when we're doing this. Now, the 5 tenets, right, they're courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit. Now, they're all important, but for right now, I think the 2 most important ones are our perseverance and our indomitable spirit. They kind of go hand in hand, right? Like I said throughout this entire video, every day you're going to be pushing yourself more and more. And it's going to be hard, but that's where these 2, perseverance and indomitable spirit, that's where they come in, right? You have to push yourself more and more every day. That's the only way you're going to get better. And some days it's going to be hard, but in order to actually get that kick high, if that's something you want to do, right, that's something you're going to have to accept. You're going to have to persevere. You're going to have to keep on working toward it. Again, I've been doing this for maybe 11 years, right? I think almost 12 now, right? And I didn't go from like this kick to that kick in like a week, in a month. For maybe like the first, I'd say like 6, 7 years, my kicks sucked. Basically everything I talked about today, I wasn't doing, right? My kicks were bad. I didn't care, right? I didn't actually have good chambers, have good pivots, any of that. But now, right, what changed is that I kept on working through it and I kept on getting better every single day. So when you're not seeing progress right away, right, maybe you're still stuck, you can't pick your foot up above your knee yet, right, just understand that you have to keep on working, persevere through it, right, show your indomitable spirit, and that's the only way that it's going to get better. Alright, well that's it for today. Hopefully you guys learned something. If you guys are still feeling kind of confused, I will be making future videos on each of those topics, way more in depth, so keep on the lookout for that. If you thought this was good, give me a like, press the like button, and maybe press the subscribe button. But that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you.